I was gonna make a video about an article I found that went over some of Spotify's loud and clear data that they released in 2021, but then I saw recently that they released their loud and clear data for 2023 and saw something very interesting between the two. That is the premise of this video, which is the music industry is not oversaturated. And when I say that, I mean it just for artists. So here's the original article I was gonna go over, which is from iGroove, that says, are there really only 200,000 professional artists on Spotify? It was made in May 2022, which means it was probably going over the loud and clear stats from 2021. You can see here that they have like a quick little blurb why Spotify thinks they only have 200,000 professional artists. The vast majority of artists have less than 50 monthly listeners, and more than half of all songs have less than 500 streams. Remember, this is for 2021, and some of this stuff I don't think they included in their 2023, which is interesting, but there was a link between the two. So in 2021, Spotify claimed that they only had 200,000 artists on their platform that were professionals, and only 52,000 artists or around that were able to generate more than 10,000 USD within a year. One of the craziest stats that I thought was in this article, or from their 2021 stats, that only 500,000 artists had more than 1,000 monthly listeners, and this is out of the 8 million that they were tracking at the time. So 500,000 out of 8 million artists on their platform had 1,000 listeners. The reason why I think that's crazy is it takes very little marketing or promotion. Like, you don't even really need to know what you're doing to be able to get 1,000 listeners. So the fact that only 500,000 out of 8 million were able to do that within the year is just crazy to me, that like not more artists were able to do that. Here's an important stat that we're gonna cross-reference here. So 214,000 artists were able to cross the 10,000 listener threshold in 2021, which is where Spotify set the benchmark for professional artists. The wording here is key to how we're gonna compare it to their 2023 stats, and that 214,000 number is also important. Here's a chart that they had of how many artists had a certain amount of monthly listeners. It's not really important to this specific topic of video I'm making, but if you want to look at it more in depth, I thought it was interesting, so you can pause and take a look before we move over to their 2023 loud and clear, which is on their official site if you want to look at it right now during this video or even after the video. All right, let's get into these comparisons now and how they are pretty interesting in my opinion. So in 2023, they had 10 million plus uploaders that had at least a single track, compared to what they considered 8 million in 2021. So let's say 2 million plus more people uploading at least a single track. But their emerging and professional artists in 2021, they considered having only 214,000 professional artists. Now they're saying they have 225,000 emerging and professional artists, which means the amount of uploaders they had on their platform within 2 years went up by 2 million plus. But the amount of emerging / professional artists that are actually serious about their music, I guess you could say, only went up by about 10,000. I'm not gonna read through this whole numbers and context section here, but like I said, you can go look at it yourself if you're interested in it. They pretty much compare Spotify to like YouTube, and how YouTube has like millions of people that upload videos, but only a couple 100,000 actually have a career from it. If you're following along and you click into this emerging and professional artist little hyperlink here, you'll get brought into this page, which kind of goes into it a bit more in depth, not as much as I thought it would, but still enough that it has some interesting information. The important thing that we want to look at though is pretty much this paragraph right here. So they estimate there's 225,000 emerging or professional artists like we just saw on the previous page, but the way that they find that is they consider artists that have released at least 10 songs all time and have an average of 10,000 monthly listeners as emerging / professional artists. Which, if we look back at their 2021, like I said, they only considered those 10,000 plus monthly listeners as professional artists. Now they're saying they're emerging / professional artists. I don't know why they decided to change the wording up there, maybe to make it seem like better than it is. But if you can see here in 2021, they didn't include the 10 song minimum body of work to have along with your 10,000 monthly listeners to be considered a professional or an emerging artist, which I thought was interesting, especially with bots in music and how big of a problem that is right now. and artists releasing maybe like 1 to 2 songs and just botting their songs to get like hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of monthly listeners and make it seem like they have a fan base when they really don't. In this bottom paragraph here, they pretty much say that a quarter of those artists generated 10,000 or more from Spotify alone, which is kind of similar to the amount that generated $10,000 here, the 52,000 out of 214,000 in 2021. So that number didn't really change much, but like that's pretty good. 10,000 alone in a year from Spotify. They say here it's likely 40,000 across all revenue sources, which for a lot of people is like a yearly salary, which is insanely good to just do that off streaming alone. If you also consider that these artists are probably also selling merch and performing, whether it's small shows, and having multiple other sources of revenue. So now that we've gone over the numbers, we're gonna go more in depth as to why it's so crazy that the amount of emerging / professional artists they've had on their platform pretty much stayed the same the past 2 years, when the number of artists releasing music, or users, I guess you could say, it's probably a pretty similar number, went up by 2 million plus. The main correlation I have here is that there is millions and millions of artists that are not actually serious about their music and maybe not even making good music yet, but are just spending the money to release it on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff with platforms like DistroKid or TuneCore. Even though, like I said, their music might not be good enough to even get an audience yet, but they're still just putting their music on the platforms anyways. So most of the 10 million plus users uploading are probably people like that, but then you also probably have a couple million of artists who are actually making good music but don't know how to or aren't doing anything to actually get their music into people's ears, and are just hoping that Spotify's algorithm will do it for them, which is pretty rare for it to happen on its own. Or they're making like short form videos on TikTok and Instagram and not promoting them and just hoping that an algorithm pushes them out and they get famous like that, which is pretty much just dreaming. So with that said, and the information we just went over, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that the music industry is not oversaturated with artists who are actually serious about trying to make a living with their music, but it's oversaturated with artists who aren't good enough at making music to make a living off of it, or artists who are good enough at making music to make a living off of it, but don't actually do anything to be able to get themselves there. Now, this is the part of the video where I'm gonna go into some of my own experiences as an artist. I'm an artist myself, if you didn't know that, and talk about some things you can do if you're an artist to start getting yourself into that 225,000 group of emerging or professional artists that really isn't that hard to do if you think about it big picture, but the process of it is pretty hard to just follow through with, which is the main thing that is keeping artists from getting into that small group of people. So right now we are in my Spotify for Artists. As you can see, it's my profile picture in the top left. This is my Beats artist page that I also manage in this same Spotify for Artists profile. This is the stats from November 16th to December 14th. Why did I choose these stats specifically? I had never tried running advertising or marketing for my music up until I released a new song on December 15th, 2023. And I have been releasing music as an artist for around 10 years now. These numbers themselves are also kind of inflated because I just released my first project, or even first original songs, in a year and a half on October 31st. So this is pretty recent after that I already had some organic streams from just people I already knew or that were already following me that were listening to my new EP. So here's one last look at this before we switch over to the first month after I released a new song and started running meta ads for it. That was the only advertising I did. I didn't do any playlisting. Then the month after that, I started doing playlisting. So you're gonna see a 3-month growth process here. And I'm gonna tell you how much I spent at the end of it and how much I learned and what I'm able to do now by doing this process. So key stats here: 74 listeners, 199 streams. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open a separate tab and then have all 3 of them so we can just go through them side by side. Okay, I got the tabs open and ready. So main stats we're gonna look at is listeners, streams, saves, playlist ads, followers. So 74 listeners. We're gonna go over to the next month now here. 232 listeners. So we gained, what is that, quick math, like 175 monthly listeners. I'm not good at math, I'm just trying to think of that off the top of my head, but pretty decent jump in listeners from only 1 month. Streams went from 199 to 1,071, so almost 1,000 more streams in a month. My streams per listener went up significantly from 2.7 to 4.6. My saves went up a crazy amount from 2 saves in the month to 121 saves. And my playlist ads also jumped up a lot, went from 6 to 129. And my followers actually made a decent jump here, went from 19 to 32, so jumped up by about like 13. So we went from this to this in my first month ever of attempting to run meta ads. I did not have good costs per conversion here. I'm pretty sure my best cost per conversion was like 70 cents a click, which what you should be aiming for, or like what's a good cost per conversion is 20 to 30 cents a click. Anything less than that is like excellent. So now we're gonna go from this month, which was just meta ads, like I said, and into the month that I was just in a playlist that I was promoting. So we go from 232 listeners to 576 listeners. So we pretty much doubled the amount of monthly listeners. The streams here are skewed because I got put into a botted playlist against my own will. So the actual number of streams, if you take away these hundreds here and just add the average of all of these days, is actually around 1,200 streams. So compared to the last month, I gained about like 200 more streams, which is fine for the month considering I turned off the meta ads, and this was just putting myself in a playlist that I was promoting by myself for the first time. And like I said, it was my first time ever promoting or making any type of ads. So my cost per conversions were not good. I'm pretty sure the cost per conversion for this playlist was around 50, 60 cents for this month anyways. The streams per listener would also be skewed, but the saves and playlist ads and followers is not skewed. So as we can see, our saves went down a little bit, but like I said, this was me being in a playlist, so I'm not getting direct advertising of people seeing me performing my song. This is me inside of a playlist. So the amount of saves are honestly still pretty good if you think about it like that. The playlist ads actually went higher, so I got added into more playlists. And obviously my followers didn't grow as much because like I said, I'm in a playlist with 50 other artists. So people aren't as invested in me directly to want to follow compared to an ad where they're seeing my face and me performing a song and me telling a story that they might connect to. But yeah, if we look at the 3-month period from before I started running ads to the 2 months that I was running ads slash in a playlist that I was running ads to, we had 74 monthly listeners, 199 streams, 2 saves, 6 playlist ads, 19 followers. We end off with 576 monthly listeners, so we gained that by 500, around 1,200 streams in the month if we take away the botted streams, which is a gain of like 1,000, 100 saves, 133 playlist ads, 35 followers. These are huge jumps from what we had to start off with. We pretty much had nothing going for us here, and this definitely made a huge difference. Now, before we get into how much I spent in those 2 months to get that amount of growth, and even though I had really bad ad results, we're gonna go to this Spotify royalties calculator. So I had around 2,300 streams if we're just considering those 2 months that I was running ads. And I already went into my DistroKid to see like what my average cost per stream was. And Belgium is like the most relatable, or I guess like most realistic cost per Spotify pays per stream compared to what I actually get. Now here's the numbers. So I spent around $500 Canadian on running the ads, the meta ads of myself, like I said, and the meta ads to the playlist that I had myself in those 2 months, which got me around $7 back, which obviously the return on investment, if you just consider those 2 months, is awful. But I've already learned how to optimize and make ads so much better that most of my ads now that I'm running to playlists or just other ad related stuff that I'm working on, all of my costs in general are around 20 to 40 cents, which is a lot better than before, where I was usually around 60 cents to $1. And some of my playlist ads now I've gotten down to less than 10 cents per conversion, which is absolutely insane, especially that I'm already able to do that in just pretty much 3 months in my career of learning marketing and how to run ads. Not only that, but I've also done a bunch of other research on different ways to run campaigns to where you would still grow your streams, but you can also make the money back from the campaign just within that marketing period, from stuff like merch sales, or even if you want to sell just like other specific things related to you that don't cost that much, but people would be interested in buying because they're just interested in you. They want to invest in you in a certain way because they either connect with your story or find you attractive or whatever else. So although I spent the $500 on bad performing ads, I've now learned how to optimize and make ads properly to where when I when I'm running ads now and when I start running ads in the future for myself and my own songs, I feel much more confident in the results I'm gonna get and making back even more of the money just from the streams alone, but also from those other things like I mentioned. The hardest part, like I said, is just going through that period where you're not gonna get very good results and you know you're pretty much burning money, but you have to just push through it until you finally figure it out. There is gonna be that moment where you make an ad and it just performs insanely well. Then you can break it down, see how it ended up performing like that, and at that point you pretty much figured it out. So all that money that you pretty much burned ended up being worth it only if you're going to stick with it and then keep making music and making good ads and doing this for like at least the next 5 to 10 years to where it compounds, and then you'll probably make that money back honestly within a year once if you're able to learn how to do it within a couple months. So it'll honestly pay off. I actually wanted to release a new song every month this year and go off the momentum from my EP I released at the end of October and the single I released in the middle of December, and then release a single in the middle of every month going on for the rest of this year, starting in January. But at the beginning of January, I got very sick. I'm pretty sure I had like a case of bronchitis, and I literally couldn't sing or even talk without aggressively coughing for like 3 months. But I'm kind of happy that happened because I was able to just like go all in on working on ads, testing ads for songs I had previously released, which I'm glad that I actually had new work that I could promote and have there for the months that I wasn't able to make new music and make new content and get that out. But I am better now and can sing again and already have new music planned to start putting out in June. So maybe I'll make an update to this video and use myself as an example of, you guys just saw the bad, honestly, it's not even that bad results, because if you do that over like a year period, what would you have? Even if you had the worst results like I just had, like 60 to 80 cents per click, you'd still end up with like 2,000 monthly listeners by the end of the year. Now, like I said, I can get that cost down by at least half. So I'd have 4,000 within a year, worst case scenario, let's say, with what I know now. So in 2 years, you're pretty much near that 10,000 monthly listener threshold that Spotify considers you as an emerging or professional artist. Then do that again for another 2 years and another 2 years, and your costs will get even better. You'll get even better at doing stuff, and you will be in that group of 225,000 emerging or professional artists that Spotify considers very soon. One last thing I wanted to mention on that though, some people just aren't built for going through this process. Like, that doesn't make you a worse person. It just, like, you're not interested in it. You only want to focus on the music. You don't care about getting in depth into any of this extra stuff on the marketing side of it. At that point, my advice would be, if you already have a regular job, stop paying for like Netflix subscriptions or stop going out on the weekends for a couple months and save up a couple hundred to a couple $1,000 if you can, honestly, so you can pay someone who knows what they're doing to do that for you. When I say that, like, you need to be able to pay someone to do it for you that actually can give you good results for at least like 3 to 6 months for it to make a big enough impact, or you're pretty much just gonna be wasting the money, like I said, if you do it for 1 month and then just stop releasing music and content, or you're just releasing music and content and you're not still running ads to it and promoting it. So yeah, that was the last point I think I wanted to make based on this video topic. If any of you are R&B or hip hop artists, my label actually has submissions open to our playlist for April right now. Hip hop artists are free this month because the playlist is less than 1,000 followers, and every new playlist that the label starts that has less than 1,000 followers is gonna accept free submissions. For R&B artists, it's $15 to submit this month, but the cost per stream are the best value that I've found looking at all the other legitimate companies online. I'm not gonna name any names because I don't wanna get in any trouble legally if I can get sued for calling them out like that. But yeah, the worst cost per stream you'll get with that $15 in our playlist is 0.03 cents per stream. And the absolute best you can get if you're placed at the top of the playlist is 0.004 cents per stream, which is around what Spotify pays out. So you'd essentially be getting free promotion. And we also give you in-depth feedback, not like some of these other companies I've seen on Reddit posts and stuff where they just give you like an AI generated response. We actually do in-depth paragraph feedbacks of what we liked, what we didn't like, and even give you some tips on how to like upgrade your Spotify profile or your cover art and things like that. So yeah, links for both of those submissions will be in the description. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and got something useful out of it. I'm hoping to be able to start getting more content out more frequently. Over the past couple months, like I said, I was sick, and on top of that, I was working on putting the website together that you guys will see if you go down to the submissions and check those out, which took a long time, and also spending a lot of my time working a regular side job as well and learning how to do these ads on top of that. That's gonna be it for this one. Peace.